Welcome to the Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
What is good, Lock Shoppers? Welcome to the Lock Shop. No Nielsen today, just Hustler and P. Greggy. Dusty's on a route to Hamilton for the Grey Cup. I'll be heading out later on tonight. And time willing, we'll get on with the fellas. Jake and Pat, I know we're going to be in for the next couple days, and definitely on Monday as we're traveling. But we will try and hook it up. But this is going to be a really fun show today. We are going to hit the hockey tonight in the National Hockey League. We are definitely going to take a quick look at the lines for the upcoming week in the National Football League and talk a little bit about the Thursday nighter, although we'll get picks in for that game tomorrow. But we're also going to look at the futures market. We're 10 weeks into the season, have some clarity on, who the real contenders are, teams that are in the mix for the playoffs, but also the individual awards. And we're going to get Patty to dive a little behind the scenes, pull the curtain back, if you will, and find out where the money is right now going into week 11 of the NFL season when it comes to bets on Super Bowl winners, awards, and much more. So it's going to be a great one. Of course, the Lock Shop is presented by our friends at Coolbet. Get on over to coolbet.com. Make sure you check out the exclusives that we're rolling out every day. Damn Vegas Golden Knights. I think they had too much fun in Biden's closet or something like that the night before, because 2 for 3 last night. However, the WST parlay did come through. Shout out to Nikolai Ehlers, Cole Perfetti, and the Jets for getting that done. Another nice win for anyone that rode with us on the WST parlay. Don't forget, if you haven't played at Coolbet before, head on over there and use the promo code LOCKSHOP when you make your first deposit. Hook you up with a 100% bonus up to $200. P. Greggy, what's going on? How are you?
Doing well, man, but you said it. That's a massive WST parlay that you cashed once again. You guys might have to be on the suspended list, honestly. The Lock Shop's been rolling well. EST might be back, considering the Oilers might have a pulse now in their season. We'll probably talk about that game in a little later, but everything coming up big in the PEG. You guys obviously got the big game coming up next, or this Sunday. I know you'll be there. You talk about, pulling back the curtain. Well, the biggest risk for the Grey Cup this season was, in fact, the Bombers. Shouldn't come as a surprise, though. So I know for you, I'll be cheering for the Bombers, but the rest of the folks with the polar bear logo, they might be cheering for another side.
Well, they might end up very disappointed at the end of the 110th Grey Cup. Let's just take a quick look, actually, where we're at for the Grey Cup right now. We did see some line movement yesterday from 7.5 to 8.5. That's where it is right now. And I see the total's gone up by 0.5 point. It was 47. It is now 47.5. Money line, Bombers minus 385. And the Montreal Alouettes plus 305. Just, Pat, on this, what did you, when you were thinking about this matchup, considering the Bombers, their history, the Alouettes' huge upset, where did you think the line was going to be? And are you surprised it is where it is right now? Or is this sort of where you thought?
This is kind of where I thought. I know there was some other books that opened up. You guys were saying at like -6, which is crazy. 7.5 seemed normal, but I think this 8.5 number is probably pretty good. I think that's probably where we see it come kickoff. Maybe there will be a little movement both sides, but when you look at it, I think top to bottom. I know the Bombers are dealing with some injuries, but last week they proved that they can win without a full roster. They have so much depth at so many different positions. You mentioned the big thing, though. They've been here. They're not going to be afraid of the bright lights. But then again, neither were the Toronto Argos last year in that spot as well. The Alouettes put on a masterful clinic defensively against that Argos. You could also argue on the flip side, it was a bit of a choke job by Chadwick Kelly or Chad Pick
Chad
Kelly,
picked
whatever you
Kelly after Saturday.
whatever you want to call him. That was a really embarrassing performance, but you can't just put that on them choking. The Alouettes were legit. They earned their way here. And you want to talk about them being in this spot. Well, certainly hasn't their quarterback been in this spot before. So there might be some other players that might be nervous for this game. The man under center is not going to be afraid of the bright lights of the Grey Cup. So I think this is probably where we see it. And I'll be honest too, sticking to the theme of transparency and looking behind the curtain, there really hasn't been a ton of action on either side. And I think that means, obviously we get our rush of bets coming in when it first opened. But since it's moved to the 8.5, no one's jumped towards the Alouettes, but no one's also, jumped to the Bombers. I think we see more play come in closer to kickoff, maybe on Friday, even Saturday. That's when the real action will trickle in. I think a lot of people are sitting on their hands and waiting to see what happens here.
Yeah, I mean, I think myself and a bunch of probably Bomber backers were jumping on that number when it came out, assuming that it would get higher. I still wouldn't be surprised if this gets to 9 or 9.5 by the time it kicks off. I guess depending on what comes in. I still don't. I mean, I think at a certain point they're going to be looking for Alouettes bets because I really think the Bombers are the public team. They've got the big fan base. Certainly, Cool Bet, very significant business here in Manitoba with a lot of Bomber fans and WSTers. So it'll be interesting to follow that. And of course, we'll get. Well, I was going to say, and we'll get some injury updates. No, we won't. Mike O'Shea's not going to say a damn thing. Everyone's going to be a game time decision until 30 minutes before. So we'll have to we'll have to figure that one out. As I said, we're going to be spending a lot of time on this game Thursday and Friday on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and I know you guys will be hitting it when we're doing the Lock Shop shows here as well. And then, of course, we're going to get to the NFL in just a minute. But let's quickly get to the pucks.
Before we get to the pucks, I see in the chat Mark is asking about, saying, I want Grey Cup props. Those will start to sprinkle out this evening. I can assure you of that. Okay. Our usual player prop offerings, but also our usual Grey Cup offerings. So a little more unique bets. Will there be a Rouge? Anthem over under. What will the first Green Day song be at halftime? Those ones will also be offered as well, but we might have a little more in-depth offering for player props. Huss, of course, you, Dusty, Lock Shop, WST, EST, whoever. We also can put some exclusives together, or if there's a prop, once they are put up and you don't see it, and that includes you in the AM Nasty chat or whoever it may be. If there's something that you don't see that you'd like to bet, either hit myself up at P. Greggy or even just, tweet one of these fellas here, and we'll see if we can get something up as well. So not making any promises, but that's just the one thing that Cool Bet we pride ourselves on is always getting some of those requested bets in as well.
Good idea from Mark. First Green Day song for the halftime. That
will be there.
One. Listen, I'm going to definitely need sack props for the game and the Bombers. And maybe a prop as to whether Cody Fajardo survives. That's another one that I will throw out there. Not sure how you grade that one at the end of the game, but hey, listen, he's 0-9 and it has been tormented by this football team for the better part of his entire career. 0-9 head-to-head against Zach Caleros. A tall task for the Alouettes. It is making me nervous how confident I am in the Bombers in this game. But as I say, it'll be interesting to see once we get boots on the ground in Hamilton and get ready for the game starting with these shows tomorrow, kind of the vibe around it. But I know the Bombers are going to be all business. I am interested to kind of get a little bit more in on where the Alouettes are at after that monster upset last week. So last night, Vegas kind of screwed us. I mean, we had Calgary, we had that puck line on Florida. Play of the day was puck line on Florida. We're now 2 for 2 this week, starting another streak. But I will pump up the tires of the home team here in the Peg. Nice win last night for the Winnipeg Jets against the New Jersey Devils, albeit without Heischer and Jack Hughes. I mean, big holes in their lineup. But New Jersey is still good. That Jesper Bratt, man, is he fun to watch. And you know what? Listen, they came back down 2-0, tied it up. But the Kyle Connors show is rolling right now. And he kind of quietly finds himself tied with Austin Matthews for most goals in the National Hockey League at 13. He was second star of the week last week. And for you lock shoppers and WSTers that are with me on the Josh Morrissey over prop for points, I think it was 56.5, tying a franchise record with 4 assists last night. A very, very nice boost for our guy, Josh Morrissey. Patty, we had a big slate last night. So usually Wednesdays a little bit lighter. So let's take a quick look at the 4 games that are on the board tonight. The Philadelphia Flyers, who I'll be honest, I think the Flyers have been great for the book this year. I think there's been a lot of people kind of fading Philly at most opportunities, and they've had a lot of wins as underdogs so far this year. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're coming in after winning a couple out on the West Coast. Yeah, the 4-2 win at LA and a 6-3 win over the Ducks. They now go across the continent to take on the Carolina Hurricanes tonight. And the Hurricanes, for their part, have been listen, they survived without Aho there for a little bit. They've now won 3 of their last 4. Big 4-0 shutout of the Lightning. And now they're back at home after playing 5 of their last 6 on the road. The Hurricanes, not surprisingly, a -239 favorite in this game. You know, I was thinking puck line on this a little bit when I was trying to put together a play of the day, sort of turned away on it because that one thing I'll say about Torts' teams, Pat, is that, I mean, they hang in there and they make you earn every inch of ice. Are they as talented as most teams they're playing? Definitely not. And certainly not the Carolina Hurricanes. But I just find that the 239 money line, I'm not sure if it's worth it there. And I'll be honest, I think Philly is one of these teams that's finding a way to grind out points. So I think it's a little, I stayed away from that puck line. Although if you do like the puck line on the Canes, it is plus 110 to win by 2. And then we've got some
quickly on that one, because I thought that this would be a game that would be brought up, just because it seems like the Flyers, whenever you guys are on the Flyers, it's you just can't get on the right side. We know that they've been playing a lot better, but they're a spread covering machine so far this year on the puck line. They're 10-5 against the spread. Their overall record is 7-7. And they've covered the spread 6 of 8 on the road this year. So they're a team that I think they're not going to win a ton of games this year, but I see them as a team that's going to cover the puck line a lot. They're going to keep it close. They're going to battle to the bitter end. So I would stay away, at least to start the year right now, from just blindly fading the Flyers, because it has not been a very valuable way to make money this season.
I see Pat Maroon's bib in chat. What the heck's going on with Ehlers pulling a McDry? Ehlers is hey, he had 2 goals last night, helping us cash that WST parlay, and then dropped the gloves. Fought a guy. Didn't like the way he hit Vlad Nemetsnikov. So you know you have a team that is fully bought in when Nikolai Ehlers is dropping the gloves, sticking up for his teammates. It really has been. And I know a lot of people are outside of the Winnipeg market watching this show. For all of the smoke around this team in the offseason, those 2 extensions on Thanksgiving and the way this team's come together, it has been so much fun to watch. And I think a lot of people are fully back on board with the Winnipeg Jets so far this year in this market. We've been seeing some better crowds and certainly a lot more excitement. But if you've been waiting for Ehlers to sort of wake up, he missed training camp and, did have a slow start to the season. Listen, if he gets going at his top level, the way the rest of the team is playing, watch out right now. And he's playing with Cole Perfetti, who is a point machine now. I believe 7 straight and 10 points in his last 10 games. And he had the pass he laid to Ehlers last night was world class and got one as well. They both were out for star laps after last night's game. But let's get out. I mean, I know there's a lot of Oiler fans in the chat. By the way, guys, for everyone in Edmonton, fill us in. What's the pulse of the Oiler Nation right now? New coach, got a win. Are we over the terrible start right now, or you still have some nerves going into this game against the Seattle Kraken? Of course, the Oilers whooped the Kraken in Jay Woodcroft's final game as head coach on the weekend, Pat. And now the two teams get back at it at Rogers Place tonight. Oilers a minus 181 favorite, Kraken plus 153. The number that stands out to me that I think I'm leaning for the play of the day, I'm going to ride with 97. He's got a lot of room to make up to get back to his normal spot atop the NHL scoring leaders. Minus 113 for a Connor McDavid goal tonight. So I think I'm going to ride with McDavid. And I wouldn't even be surprised on the puck line. I mean, I just have a feeling, and I don't know about you, Pat. I mean, this team is just, they have way too much talent to be as bad as they've been. And sometimes when you have teams in this situation, they just need a couple things to go their way, a couple good results. And listen, I know there's been a lot of craziness around with the coach firing and the press conferences, but for those guys in the room, they've won a lot of games together before. They didn't all of a sudden just become terrible hockey players or a terrible team. So I kind of feel like they are turning the corner. And I have a feeling we're going to be talking about a lot of Oiler wins going ahead. But this game tonight against a team that they just saw, second game for the head coach. I mean, the first one sort of new. I think you're playing on instinct. I am interested to see this one go, how this one goes. However, I will say this: the one thing I think we can take to the bank is we're going to see a much more productive Connor McDavid as we go into the next weeks and months.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, I'm not saying that Woodcroft shouldn't have been fired. Like, I mean, I think you had to make a move, and he's just the scapegoat at that point. Mind you, I think that they weren't really getting puck luck, especially when it comes to the offensive side. You look at them; they were leading the league in expected goals. Say what you will about analytics, but basically, what all the analytics were saying is they were due to break out offensively. The one thing for me, though, is have they fixed themselves defensively? Are they a completely different team? I really don't think that it's just going to be, bring in a coach and immediately he's going to be able to make this team a much more sound defensive team. I think even with them, with their expectations, this was a team that was like, hey, we're going to score a lot of goals. We're probably going to give up a lot of goals with our goaltending and with the way that we play defense. That's fine because we can outscore everyone. I'm leaning the over here, and I know the Edmonton Sports Talk parlay has the under. Just for me, with the way that the offense played the last few games, talking about the puck luck, they've split up or keeping to split up McDavid and Draisaitl. I really like the way that Draisaitl, Hyman, and Kane line have been playing as of late. And Seattle can score as well, but they've been struggling the last few games to keep the puck out of their net. So over 6.5 at minus 118, that would be my lean for sure. Because even if the Oilers win, I could see this being, 5-3, 5-4, whatever it may be, a higher scoring hockey game because I think they're due to break out. They are breaking out offensively. But I think the Kraken can hold up their own end of the bargain as well.
And the one thing I don't think you associate with either of these teams is goaltender battles or the goalie duels, if you will. Stewie Skins is in for the Oilers. They're expecting Joey Decord to be the guy. He's not confirmed yet right now. So there you go. The Ducks have been one of the great stories of the year. Yeah. Do I expect them to come back to earth? Yeah, I do. And listen, they're in a really tough spot right now. They play last night in Nashville. Big win. Shout out to the Ducks for, beating one of the other Central Division teams. But now they go to Colorado. And Patty, Dusty and I were talking about this yesterday, and I think in the chaos post West final here in Winnipeg, I wasn't paying too close attention to what was happening around the league later on in that game. I did not realize that the Avalanche got their brains beaten in by the St. Louis Blues 8-2. Now, they did come back and beat the Kraken 5-1, but they had also lost to that team. I mean, the Avs so far this year have really, they had that great start to the season where they were 6-0. Since then, they're 3-5, and that includes the win in their last game right now. So,
yeah.
But here's the thing. This is a spot. against an Anaheim team that played last night, and I think a team that's still probably snarly from what happened earlier in the week, that they probably lay it to Anaheim right now. And if you were looking at one of these bigger favorites tonight on the puck line, I'm thinking the Avs with the Ducks playing on the second end of back-to-back. That puck line is minus 122 for Colorado.
Yeah, and you talk about it like I think you can't understate how tough of a stretch it was for the Abs. You talk about the thrashing to the hands of the Blues 8-2. They also lost to the Golden Knights 7-0, and they also lost to the Sabres 4-0 at home. And the game before that to the Penguins 4-0 at home. They have taken a licking. But with that being said, they beat the Kraken 5-1, and I think this is where they're like, okay, I think they realize, this stretch is over. They can't be giving up points like this. That division, they need to keep pace with the likes of the Golden Knights. So for me, I think I don't love betting puck lines. This would be a spot for sure. I would be interested in some player props as well. Valerian Nichushkin seems like he's starting to get going. I don't think we have a shot prop total on him at the moment. That would be one that I'd be looking for, but him to score a goal as well. So I think if you're going to re-hop on the Abs train, I think you got to do it soon, because I think that little lull was just a lull, and I think they're a legit team. They're getting healthier as well.
Okay, one other game tonight. The return of Bo Horvat, former Canuck captain, to the West Coast. I heard Merrick talking today earlier about the reception that Bo Horvat should get and will get, and everyone assumes that he's going to get booed out of the building, which is insane when you consider what he went through as captain of the Vancouver Canucks and the fact that they decided to trade him. I mean, they signed JT Miller. They aren't going to sign Bo. So, but mind you, that the entire sports scene in the Vancouver is so nuts. Like, the team is playing so well right now. They're challenging for first place. And the biggest story is beef between Trevor Linden and Jim Benning as to who was responsible for drafting Elias Pettersson. I mean, that just is the Canuck fan base and Vancouver sports scene in a nutshell. That being said, we've got a interesting game, and this is by far the closest game when it comes to the odds tonight. Islanders plus 129, Canucks, who've been so good this year, minus 152. But I can't help but look at the Bo Horvat goal prop plus 205 in this game tonight. If you want narrative street, maybe jump on Bo. But I mean, at the same time, the Islanders have not been doing anything, Patty, to inspire much confidence. Losers of 5 straight. 4-1 to the Oilers, 4-1 to the Caps, 5-2 to the Bruins, 4-2 to the Wild. I mean, they've actually haven't even covered the puck line in the last 4 games.
No.
And 4-3 to the Hurricanes before. But the return of Bo, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. You're totally right. The mindset of the Vancouver hockey fan is just or I shouldn't even say hockey fan, sports fan for that matter. It's true. They are tough to figure out what's going on. But I think a Horvat prop goal, even a point, I'd be interested. Don't know the point number. I know it's 205, but I think this is Canucks and Reg. I would even consider taking them on the puck line. With all that being said, I think they're legit. I don't think this is just a good start to the year. They've won 6 of their last 7. The one loss did come to the Toronto Maple Leafs in a pretty convincing win. Just saying. They've won 7 of their last 6 of their last 7 on the road. At home, Demko has been elite. We cannot talk more about Quinn Hughes. Norris candidate, no doubt. Elias Pettersson leading the league in points. JT Miller not too far behind as well. So I think you put a formula in there. This one seems to me like a no-brainer, either puck line or in regulation. I think regulation last time I checked was plus 108 when I bet it.
And just before we move off of hockey, just looking ahead to tomorrow, we got a 1 p.m. game, 2 p.m. Eastern. Red Wings and Senators, of course, at the Avicii Arena.
Yes.
I did not
Play
know
levels.
the Stockholm Arena is called the Avicii Arena. Wow.
Yes.
That was the DJ. He passed away, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay. So it's sort of a memorial tribute,
yeah,
if you will.
exactly.
And then the Avicii Arena will be rocking again on Friday, 1:00 game here in Winnipeg. So I guess 2 Eastern, noon out in Edmonton for the Red Wings and the Maple Leafs. And then I think on Saturday, okay, and then the Wild get into the mix. The Wild, this is a great weekend out there in Stockholm. I'm be bringing
There's
4 teams out there. Wild and
Sunday,
Senators,
8
and then
a.m.
then Sunday at 8 a.m. That's a Leaf game.
Yeah, 8 a.m. start I think against the Wild, right before NFL action starts. Like that's going to be a great couch day. And then, yep, the other big game, 6:00 kickoff here Eastern in Hamilton. Like that is an all-time sports day.
Hey, okay, let's get to the NFL because I want to ask you some questions about these futures. But before we do that, couple bits of news. The Cleveland Browns better be hoping that PJ Walker is ready to go. Deshaun Watson, after arguably his best game as a Brown, Cleveland just can never have nice things. Although maybe this is somewhat karma or payback for that entire Deshaun Watson saga. The minute he starts showing out, he's out for the season. And the line, the betting is off the board right now for this game. But the Browns are now just 2-point favorites against the Steelers in watch. The Steelers are going to win this game too. Like I did not think that they had much. Now they're going to find a way. Like they could be 7-3 at the end of next week. No one knows how they're doing it, but big AFC North battle tomorrow night. The Bengals and the Ravens. Ravens are 4-point favorites. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be in on Cincy in this game. As bad as they looked at times last week against Houston, I don't count Joe Burrow out at all. And here's the thing, Pat. Much like we've been talking about kind of picking on some real desperate teams in the NHL that have to win to make sure that they don't sort of fall out of it this early. This is going to be a very, very desperate Bengals team coming off that home loss to the Texans. And I'm really looking forward to the game, but also what Joe Burrow can do. And this is one guy that can play against the top defenses, and certainly Baltimore is that. And interesting to see how Lamar bounces back from their loss last week to the Cleveland Browns. Other lines right now, we'll just quickly go through it before we get to these futures. Cowboys 10.5-point favorites on the road in Carolina. We mentioned the Browns 2-point home favorites to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Lions 9-point favorites at home to the Bears. Chargers are laying 3 as road favorites in Lambeau against the Packers. The Stroud boys, Houston Texans, 5-point favorites at home against the Arizona Cardinals. The good old, how is this game not on Thursday night? This is like one of the old Thursday night Super Bowls, the TNF Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The Titans and the Jags, the best of the AFC South. Jags, 6.5-point favorites. Dolphins, a big 12.5-point favorite at home against the Raiders, who won a couple in a row. Left hand up for the Commanders, 10-point favorites at home against Tommy DeVito, who still lives at home, by the way, with his mom.
Mom
I learned
does his
that
laundry.
today. That was wild. Washington, 10-point favorites. The Niners, 12-point favorites at home against the Buccaneers. The Bills are laying. I don't know if the Bills should be 7-point favorites against anybody right now, considering where they're at. But that is what the story is. Obviously, we know the issues the Jets are having right now, putting up points. But Bills 7-point favorites. Seahawks and Rams. The Rams 1-point home dogs. And then great game. Who would have thought that this Sunday nighter, which was looking like it was going to be Flex City about a month ago,
I know.
no matchup with the 2 hottest teams in the league, the Minnesota Vikings and the Denver Broncos. And the Broncos are 2.5-point favorites in that game. And then the Monday nighter, the big one, Chiefs, Eagles, Kansas City, 2.5-point favorites at home to Philly. But what I do want to get into is the NFL futures market. And Pat, you've done a little digging to let us know where where people have been betting. I mean, well, why don't we just start off with the Super Bowl odds to win the whole thing? I'll fill you in on where we're at. The Chiefs and Niners are co-favorites at 5-1 right now. The Eagles just slightly more than that at plus 525. You've got the Ravens at 10-1, Cowboys 11-1, Dolphins 12-1, Bengals and Lions at 14-1. I'm surprised that Bengals number is where it is. I guess people just assume they can get into the playoffs, and once they're there, it's Joe Burrow time.
Exactly.
Jags 22-1, and the Bills 25-1. That's a bet that I would not recommend making right now. What?
Nope.
Where's the money been going for NFL fans when they're looking at the Super Bowl?
So overall, like the most bet Super Bowl pick is the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that's been consistent from preseason, kind of rolling in. No surprise as well, the Philadelphia Eagles coming in at number 2. One team that I think we saw a lot of steam preseason, and then it cooled off. And then within the last, couple of weeks, is the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think that's a big reason why you see that price there. Then followed by another recently bet team in the Baltimore Ravens, and then the 49ers, who I think majority of their bets came in preseason and early on. But when you flip it around, the risk is pretty interesting. The highest risk is actually not on the Chiefs. In fact, it's on the Bengals. And I think that's because a lot of people, when they started to collect those wins, when the number looked a little more intriguing and a little more promising than it has the last couple of weeks, that's why the Bengals are up there. The Ravens as well. I mean, the Ravens really weren't in the conversation for a Super Bowl contender up until maybe 2-3 weeks. Seriously, like when people are like, yes, this team can win. The Buffalo Bills, I think a big thing is obviously they're a very public team here in Canada, but also I wouldn't be surprised if some dummies did bet some heavy bets on them to win. And I say that tongue in cheek, calling them dummies, because I'm a Bills fan and I know that bet's not really going anywhere. And then followed up by the Browns and the Jags. Again, the Browns, up until this news that we heard, probably a nice little bet, but they have a Super Bowl caliber defense. It's just unfortunate they don't even have a capable quarterback who I think can get them into the postseason.
Hey, one other bit about Cleveland, and listen, this serves them right. I got a lot of love for the Cleveland fans. They deserve a team that can, contend for a championship. And I guess I get why they were so desperate to do it. But I mean, the whole Deshaun Watson saga has been nuts. They restructured his contract this year so they could really make a run for the Super Bowl, adding some players. His cap number is only like 19 million this year. It's 63 for the next 3 seasons. So this was sort of the year for the Browns. Not sure what we'll see happen, moving forward without Deshaun. Although they did prove that they could win games without him earlier on. Maybe they shouldn't have cut Josh Dobbs. Just saying. Wouldn't he look good right now in a Cleveland jersey? Minnesota is more than happy to have him.
And quickly here, because I know we got more to dive into, but it is malpractice for them not to at least go out and try to get someone else. Like it really is. You clearly Watson, being out wasn't him, he's clearly really hurt. Say what you will about the guy as a human being or even as a football player anymore. There's no denying, like, he wouldn't be shutting it down if he wasn't legitimately hurt. And they did not go out and get a backup plan. PJ Walker and DTR, those quarterbacks are not getting you to the postseason. I'm sorry. And you could probably think, does Dobbs do it? He might not be able to bring the Vikings in, but the way that he's played, you cannot argue to me that he would not, in front of that defense, would not give you a chance, especially the fact that they cut him after training camp or traded him to the Cardinals after training camp. It's so Brownsy, though. It is so unbelievable Brownsy.
Well, I can't. I am really looking forward to that Pittsburgh Cleveland game, no matter who's playing quarterback for the Browns. As far as more futures right now, let's talk MVP. At the beginning of the year, there was a bunch of players that were in the mix. I mean, the list usually starts with Patrick Mahomes, and lo and behold, he's right at the top of the list right now. But it is tight. Mahomes is 3-1. Jalen Hurts plus 325, Lamar plus 550, Tua 6-1, and then a big gap. Joe Burrow 17-1. And oh, I see CJ Stroud has been added to that list. He's at 20-1, along with Christian McCaffrey. I still think McCaffrey has a chance to win this award. I know his touchdown streak ended last week, but he is such I expect the Niners to get on a real roll here after losing those 3 games in a row, and they certainly look good coming out of the bye, smashing the Jags the way they did last week. Like, here's the thing. Normally, a running back doesn't have much chance to win this award, but we've seen all of these quarterbacks, Mahomes included, have, a few off games right now. And I don't know. I mean, listen, maybe it's just because it's wishful thinking because I have him at a 70-1 ticket from preseason. But if there was ever a year, like every 10 to 15 years, the quarterback play, there's not somebody that sticks out and you have like a Sean Alexander win the award. I still think that could be the case, but it's not surprising that this really is a QB award, Pat. And I'm sure when you look at where people have been betting, it's probably in and around the usual suspects, starting with 15 in red.
Yeah, it is. He's the biggest risk and he's the most bets placed. Joe Burrow next, in the same thing, risk and bets. But then there's a huge drop off regarding like total risk. It's then Hurts and then Brock Purdy, believe it or not, who I think if you have that ticket, you can probably kiss that one goodbye. But most bet after Hurts, it's McCaffrey and Jackson. So a little bit of spread around there. And I tend to agree. Like, I think there's an opportunity for McCaffrey to still, get back into this race. I think the losing streak really hurt them. I think his touchdown streak hurt him. But if Mahomes just looks, like he's looked this year, which is still solid, but not like world beater, if we don't see Joe Burrow make the playoffs or just barely get into the playoffs, and I think if Jalen Hurts here, like I think the only reason Hurts is in this spot is because his team has been winning. Like he hasn't been as good as he was last year. He's come up with some big games, don't get me wrong, but he's not the sole reason or the biggest reason even why the Eagles are where they are. They've got a tough stretch of games coming up here. If they drop a couple, I think he could drop out. So it's going to take a lot. It's going to take some of those top guys to fall off, or not even fall off, but maybe not look so good, and McCaffrey to really take off for him to get back into the hunt.
What are a few of the other awards that we're sort of looking at? I mean, there's plenty up right now. I mean, the Offensive Rookie of the Year award is over. I think if CJ Stroud didn't play another down for the rest of the year, he'd probably still win the award. And
That
Puka
one
Nacua had that great start to the season. It's a little more regular right now. Jahmyr Gibbs actually with the Lions really showing out right now, although he's still 17-1. And it's just that CJ Stroud has been so damn good. I wonder if there was many people and what his number was at the beginning of the season for Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's probably some people that believed at the start, not very many of them that are sitting on pretty darn nice numbers. A far cry from the minus 2,000 he's laying right now.
Yeah, I actually would be interesting if we can pull that number up. I don't have it in front of me. Let me see if I can get it, what it's opened up at. But to be quite honest, like this one, again, knock on one, God forbid that doesn't happen. But like, if he doesn't get hurt, this is basically a win for the book, just based off where all the risk is. It was a massive number of bets coming in on Bijan Robinson. So
For sure.
that's huge. That was by far the biggest risk for offensive. But again, and now it's kind of a spot where if you didn't bet Stroud, you can't bet him now because the number is just too big. So very interesting. I just feel like maybe people got in on him just a bit too late. And actually, now that I'm looking here, it looks like the earliest that I can see here, September 8th. CJ Stroud, 10-1.
So 10-1, far cry from the minus 2,000. Shout out to anybody that jumped on that. I'm just looking at the futures that we put in at the beginning of the season. I've got a couple beauties. If you recall, Steelers to make the playoffs is looking good. The Dolphins to win the AFC East, which
Really
was
good.
nearly 3-1. They're now minus 400. And the Ravens to win the AFC North is where is the AFC North right now? Oh, that one might be off the board because of the injury to Deshaun. But listen, they'll still be the favorite right now, even with that loss last week. So there has been some nice ones. The just looking at I don't know if you want to get into the receiving or rushing yards. I mean, it's pretty simple right now. Tyreek Hill's an overwhelming favorite to win it, minus 120 right now. AJ Brown in second at plus 275. And then Christian McCaffrey, when it comes to most rushing yards, a clear favorite at plus 175. When you're talking about rushing in particular, it is always dangerous, to get on these, especially at a low number, because injuries can change everything, especially Patty going into those final weeks of the season where recency bias is a thing, and having a strong final 5 games of the season probably means a lot more than a great first 5 games, because a lot of that is out of sight, out of mind when guys are making those decisions and voting on the awards.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you got to think that, with the way that the 49ers have played over the last few weeks, I know they picked up a win. They might be playing more meaningful games. So maybe you do. But then again, you said it, you feel like they're poised to go on a run. Maybe McCaffrey, doesn't play the last couple of games or doesn't play the last game or a half, takes half off, whatever it may be. So for these
Well,
ones,
those losses by the Niners actually help people with McCaffrey bets,
that's what I
because
mean. Yeah.
they're going to be chasing, first of all, I mean, they're not out of the woods in the division.
Nope.
But also when you're talking about the 1 seed is so important right now. And if they
Massive.
get within a game or two of Philly, they're going to keep the foot on the gas, presumably right up until week 18 of the season, to try to, obviously give themselves a better playoff position, but potentially get that 1 seed. And, Phillies has got some tough games coming up, including this week in Arrowhead on that
Mhm.
highly anticipated Monday nighter. So,
I Yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
I think this one's it's I mean they call it gambling for a reason. You are gambling, you're taking a risk, but I do agree. I think if there was a spot to bet a guy at this low of a number, I think this would be, this could be a spot, but you're taking a risk because again, if they really start catching heat and they, or even if they're not in a spot where they can catch the Eagles and they know they're going to win their division, but they're not going to get that number 1 seed, then that's when you start to think about pulling him back. The one thing I did want to go over, because we went over a lot of the risk, just overall, like if you combine all of them together, this was really surprising. Micah Parsons to win the Defensive Player of the Year was and currently is still our biggest future bet when it comes to awards at CoolBet right now, followed by Mahomes, followed by Hutchison to win the Defensive Player of the Year, Dan Campbell to win the Coach of the Year, and Patrick Mahomes to win the MVP. But the biggest risk, Aiden Hutchison to win the Defensive Player Year by a pretty significant margin. That's by far our biggest risk. Next, another Defensive Player of the Year, and maybe this is a Winnipeg sports talk bump, but Danielle Hunter from the Minnesota Vikings to win the Defensive Player of the Year. That's also a big risk as well. Obviously, a lot of hype coming around him at the start of the year. Mahomes MVP, Dan Campbell, Coach of the Year, and Micah Parsons. So those just kind of jumped out at me. Those are the biggest risks overall, and the biggest tickets. So I think. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say Campbell is the favorite right now for Coach of the Year at plus 160. I'll be honest. I think that there is some value in D'Amico Ryans at
Yes.
plus
Oh, yes.
325 with what's happened with the Houston Texans. And I rolled this out yesterday when I, kind of usually Tuesday, you get out of the Monday nighter, you get into a couple days off before Thursday, and the futures go back up on the board. I hammered the Texans to win the AFC South yesterday. I mean, going over their schedule of who they play for the rest of the way,
Yeah.
knowing that they already have a win head-to-head in Jacksonville, there is definitely a path for the Houston Texans to win that division. still plus 280 right now. Jacksonville minus 250. Love that bet. And I think if they win that division, there's going to be a lot of love for CJ Stroud, but there will also be a lot of love for D'Amico Ryans. Although Dan Campbell, I think a very popular pick because of the character that he is. And you can't underestimate the press that Hard Knocks gives a guy like that. And hey, the Lions bottom line are getting it done. I think Kevin O'Connell, if the
I was just going to
Vikings
say
make
that.
the playoffs, if the Vikings make the playoffs, considering where they were at 1-4, turning their season around, that win over the Niners was so huge, and now doing it without Kirk Cousins, he will get some consideration as well. And listen, Mike McDaniel was a sexy pick earlier in the season, but until they beat a good team or two, I think you're going to see voters go with one of those other three options.
100%. I think when you look at this award, and not taking anything away from Dan Campbell, because what they have done this year is impressive, but you look at the roster, you look at what they established last year, you could see them be possibly in the spot where they are, or at least take a big step forward. Maybe not as big as a leap as they have this year, but D'Amico Ryans and what Kevin O'Connell have done, and I would even put in Mike Tomlin in the conversation as like these three guys, what they have been able to get out of their roster with Ryans, a young team, a team that was, near the bottom last year, O'Connell having a quarterback go down, everyone calling them the biggest frauds last year, the way that they started the year and they've turned things around. And then Mike Tomlin just finding ways to win each and every year. Those seem more impressive to me than what Dan Campbell has done and what Mike McDaniel have done.
Yeah, often that award goes to the guy that does the most with what is perceived to be the least.
Yeah.
And D'Amico Ryans probably at the top of that list. Well, tomorrow will be an interesting one. Dusty, I believe, should be on. Fingers crossed, I'll be on. Jake and Pat will be rolling in. And on Friday, I know Dusty will not be on the program. I'm a game time decision, if you will, but we will kind of in advance put together our picks, couple parlays. So we will have the picks for you for sure, whether or not we're doing it live in person. It'll all be coming up on the Lock Shop for the next couple of days. And I saw Foisey had a question about Bet Builder. Your best bet to do on that, fire the guys at DM. The customer service is great. They'll get back to you if you have any questions about putting things together when it comes to the Bet Builder options over on the CoolBet site. Patty, good stuff. I'll be coming out your way later on tonight. Maybe we'll bump into you over the course of the Grey Cup weekend and festivities. But thanks again for doing this. And we'll look forward to seeing you and Jake over the next few days in the Lock Shop with myself and Dusty. Have a good one, pal.
Thanks, buddy. We'll hopefully see you in the Hammer.
You got it. And gang, thanks so much. Great to see everybody in the chat. Good luck with your picks tonight. I'll be firing out the daily pick on the CoolBet socials a little later on this afternoon. And come on back here, 11 a.m. Edmonton time, noon in the Lock Shop tomorrow, getting ready for Thursday night football. A little more on the Grey Cup and the weekend coming up in the National Football League. And then Friday, the best bets will be dropped after a great week last week in the Lock Shop. Folks, have a great one. We'll turn it over to Matt Iwanek, and we'll catch you tomorrow right here in the Lock Shop.
Thanks to the boys right there with the Lock Shop. It's time for the Fantasy Football 5, presented by Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge. Matt Iwanek with you here. Take you up to noon as Tom Gazzola and myself will have the oil stream. Some news from the Edmonton Oilers today that we'll get to, some roster movement, as well as some changing in the locker room about where players are sitting. Not actual players coming and going, actually where players are sitting. We'll get to all of that with Tommy as the Edmonton Oilers will be taking on the Seattle Kraken tonight down at Rogers Place. The Oilers looking for 3 wins in a row. Oil Stream pregame show. That gets going at 5 o'clock today with Tommy. But, we'll have the Oil Stream coming up at noon. When it comes to the Fantasy Football 5, I know my league, I'm at a trade deadline this week. I don't know how many other people out there are at a trade deadline. But what we're going to do here, I'm not Dusty. I'm not the expert like Dusty. I'm not going to try to be like, oh, this is what you all should do and things like that. Maybe we crowdsource it here. Do you have any questions for fantasy football that you're looking at or looking for advice for this weekend coming up? Maybe it's for the game tomorrow between my Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe throw that into the nasty chat or text us 780 218-9999 in the Paris Jewelers inbox. I'll throw it out there. Maybe we could help each other out here if you're looking for any sort of help when it comes to fantasy advice for this weekend. I'm feeling pretty good about my fantasy with the fact that quarterback-wise, my number one was Justin Fields. My backup I had for this year was Ryan Tannehill. As soon as Fields went down, that was the same weekend Ryan Tannehill also went down, so I was scrambling for a bit. I eventually got Will Levis, but having Justin Fields sound like he's going to be back starting this weekend when the Bears take on the Lions. I'm excited to have him back. Running back's going to be my killer. I just know that. The thing that's going to take me down this season is going to be the fact that I've been lucky when it comes to my running back. The players I have, they've been putting up good numbers, but I think my gravy train is about to come to an end. I had 4 running backs this year. One I've just lost for the year in Cam Akers. This is IR. And for anyone that listens to the Fantasy Football 5, this is the league that Dusty's in. It's 16 teams. We have 5 keepers each. So when you get to the draft, there's not a lot to pick from. So I don't have a lot of depth in that one position. I had Cam Akers, like I said. He's out on the injured reserve for the rest of the season. I have Zach Moss, who now the Colts are on a bye week, so I couldn't even use him this week. But, as soon as Jonathan Taylor came back, it was looking like, okay, what's he going to produce? And he still produced for a few weeks there, but you look at the last couple of games, only had 2 points for me at least against Carolina and out in Germany this past weekend. No points for me. He had 1 carry for 2 yards. That's it. So is the Zach Moss time in Indy out, and that's going to really hurt me because then I'm going to have to rely on 2 guys. One, though, kind of has been a surprise for me in Devin Singletary with the Houston Texans. He's been playing really well, and Raheem Mostert, who I know Dusty's talked a lot about here, he at some point gets injured. Well, the concern I have right now, at least with CBS Sports, I'm seeing that he's questionable for this week. So I'm not really excited about that one if he's hurt because I then only have 1 running back for this weekend, and I need to play 2, so I don't know what I'm going to do. There's no one on my waiver wire. _A says any word. Oh, I just lost that one. Sorry. Oh, Channy out of Miami. Is any word on him coming back? I haven't actually looked. Let me see if I can quickly find something here. If he will be coming back. If Mostert is battling an injury, I'm assuming they're going to want him back, being ready to go. What news do I see on him right now? Oh, he's on IR, so he's not expected back week 11. Is that not what we're going into, week 11 here? Yeah. So now it's any time he could come off that injured reserve and playing. I don't see anything right now. They announced Monday that he was designated for a return. He'll be eligible to return as soon as this Sunday. I think it's going to come down to especially a Mostert. If he's ready to go, maybe you take your time with him. Maybe you give him a little off. If Mostert can't be ready to go, I think then maybe you look to. If you're the Miami Dolphins, you bring him back right away. Christopher Morris, Chandler and Minnie, or Hubbard in Carolina. Let's throw that one out there. If you're in the nasty chat, which way should Christopher Morris go here? Are we going to have a bias, though, because we're in Edmonton and you got Hubbard there? Chuba Hubbard, the local kid. That's, again, I'll put that out there for anyone in the nasty chat or 780-218-9999. Which way would you go? Let's help Christopher out here. Chandler or Hubbard in Carolina. I'm sad that there's somebody else in Minnesota because, again, I need Cam Akers. Or potentially might need Cam Akers and not going to get him. I guess the matchups are going to matter. So Chandler's taking on the Broncos this week. And then who did the Panthers have this week? Because I think that sometimes comes into the play here. And the Panthers will be taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are pretty strong against the run, but the one thing I will say right now is that Denver Broncos, do you want to go up against the Denver Broncos defense right now? Is that a defense you're willing to want to go up against? What they've done the last couple of weeks, beating the Chiefs, they've beaten the Bills. The Broncos have struggled against the run this year, but I know I would personally kind of lean towards Hubbard. Maybe I'm off on that one, but when I'm looking at the defense of the Denver Broncos and what Vance Joseph has turned that team around over the last few weeks, I don't know if I want to go up against them with a running attack. So I would lean towards Hubbard, but jump into the Nasty Chat. Help Christopher out. If you have any advice yourself, that will be the Fantasy Football 5 for Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge, where you could join Lieutenant Eric tomorrow night as the Ravens will be taking on the Bengals. It's one of your last few days as Monday, the big trip being given away, Rams-Browns. That is happening on Monday, so only 3 more occasions to qualify. You'll want to get to Century Casino Sports Bar and Lounge for that. And you know what tomorrow is as well there? Smoke, brisket, cheesesteak night. You'll want to have that. Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Football 5. I am Matt Iwanek. Like I said, coming up next, it will be the Lock Shop as we'll get you set for Oilers and Kraken. That gets going tonight, 6:30. According to Jack Michael, 6:42 puck drop. But that will get going 5 o'clock with the pregame show, but the oil stream. Coming up next, be with myself and Tom Gazzola right here on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, as well as those listening on TuneIn, those watching on YouTube. We'll transition over to the oil stream right away here.